Hello and welcome to another edition of Political Insider. I'm your host, Herald-Tribune political editor Zac Anderson. With me today is Lori Hagey, the president of the Sarasota Young Republican Club and a candidate for state committee woman in Manatee County. Lori, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Happy to have you. So, as a young person who's very involved in politics, I'm really interested to get your take on this election, especially the presidential election and Donald Trump. Typically Republicans do not do as well with young people who sort of lean a little bit more to the left in general, but Trump is actually potentially having some historic troubles with millennials. There was a poll out last week that got some attention where he was actually in fourth place behind the Libertarian candidate Gary Johnson, behind Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate, and obviously behind Clinton. What do you make of that? I mean, and that was with millennials, people under 30. I mean, you're in the Sarasota, you're leading the Sarasota Young Republican Club.
Yes.
What do young Republicans, are they mostly behind him?
I would say that most of the young Republicans that I know do support their party, and they do support who we nominated, which was Donald Trump, or
Right.
is Donald Trump. Is there a generational gap in
Right.
understanding every single thing that comes out of his mouth? Absolutely. Is there a millennial issue,
Yeah.
and does he have a millennial problem in terms of supporters? Absolutely. But I don't think it's a matter of whether or not they're against him.
Right.
I think that it's just that they're choosing not to
Right.
vote.
Yeah.
And so if they are Republican and they don't agree with Trump, well, it's not that they're going to go out and vote for Hillary.
Or maybe vote for Gary Johnson, this Libertarian candidate, apparently, who obviously, that's kind of a lot of conservatives, have that Libertarian philosophy has some appeal. When you say, he might have some disconnect with millennials, what type of issues do you think?
I just don't think he has that bond, that
Yeah.
connection. He is so far out in left field most of the time when he speaks. It really isn't until he has either his son or daughter go on and bring it all back together, and then all of a sudden you see a new leaf.
Right.
All of a sudden you see the younger generation, and you see a lot of young Republicans talking about, wow, how wonderful his children were. And Donald is great, but he definitely speaks out of turn many a time.
Yeah. And, are there specific issues that you see where he might have a hard time connecting with younger people? Because on social issues, which younger people tend to be more liberal on social issues, he's actually not that conservative. I mean, in the past, he's talked about supporting abortion rights. Now, obviously, he's against that. But, he's actually been somewhat, more to the left on things like gay rights. I think even with the transgender issue, he invited Caitlyn Jenner to come use whatever bathroom she wanted at Trump Tower. So it seems like, on some of those social issues, he might be able to connect with younger people. But then younger people also tend to be more accepting of multiculturalism and diversity, and obviously he's had some what people view as somewhat harsh things to say about Hispanics and Muslims. Do you think that's part of the problem, that the diversity issue?
Well, I think the problem is that what is important to millennials right now is not as important to what Donald Trump is preaching.
Right.
Millennials are worried about the affordability of college.
Right.
They are worried about student loans.
Right.
They're worried about transgender and gay and lesbian marriage. Those are the issues. It's, again, the social issues that they are more concerned with. And, Donald Trump is not necessarily focusing on those. He's focusing more on the fiscal side of things.
And the national security issues and things like that. A candidate who has done fairly well with younger people is Marco Rubio. There was a poll out this week, a Florida poll that actually showed him leading the leading Democratic candidate, Patrick Murphy, amongst younger people in a theoretical matchup between them. Rubio actually was winning a majority of the people, 49, and under. That's kind of a fascinating dynamic. Obviously he was kind of put up as the new face of the party when he kind of initially stepped out there to run for president. He's young. I think he's only in his mid-40s. He's Hispanic. He can appeal to a broader group. Do you think there might be any kind of people who were like, man, what would have happened if we had nominated Rubio instead of Trump, and his ability to appeal to a broader group?
I think there's always going to be a what if, especially given the amount of candidates that we had to choose from, or that the Republican Party had to choose from this year. So, but I do believe that there's a reason why millennials relate to Rubio. First of all, it's his age.
Sure.
He is much younger than your traditional candidate.
Yes. I've heard him quote rap lyrics and things like that. I guess he can relate to like the things that younger people are, culturally what they relate to.
Definitely, and he's a former teacher at at Florida International University, and he holds rallies at high schools. So he's really making the effort to connect to those millennials.
Right.
He's making an effort to connect to the important issues, the issues that are important to them. Which he's talking about fixing college affordability, and he talks about being from a working class family.
Sure.
So, and those are all things that millennials see as the most important issues. Now, that's not to say that the baby boomer generation is the complete opposite. Those issues are not theirs because they no longer have student loans, or they didn't even have to
unless
worry
they're paying
about
for the kids to go to college.
Right, unless they're paying, of course. So, I think that relationship is there.
Sure.
He's managed to connect with that generation.
Do you still see him as a real potential star for the party going forward? Obviously, he's running for re-election in the Senate now. Some people thought that he might have been kind of damaged by his presidential run and losing to Trump in the Florida primary, but he's kind of picked himself back up. He's running for re-election in the Senate. It looks like he's got a pretty comfortable lead in the primary against Carlos Baruf, a Manatee County home builder. And polls do show him ahead in the general election as well. Do you think that younger people look at him as one of the future leaders of the party?
Absolutely. Marco Rubio has the ability to reach a diverse demographic, not only because he is Hispanic, but he is younger, and he really is favorable. He's a people person. He's very likable. He has that likability.
He doesn't kind of have that edge that Trump has, that some people view as kind of harsh.
But he's also, he's not so much the politician either. I mean, that's just my personal opinion, is that I don't see him. I mean, he is a politician, but at the same time, again, it just goes back to that likability character. I mean, people are drawn to him, whereas, say, maybe Ted Cruz has more of the career politician, I'm going to say what is right. Rubio is kind of a little bit, down the middle.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see how he does in this Senate race. I wanted to give you a minute. I know you're running for office here. Tell us what state committee woman is, because I don't think a lot of people really even know what that office is, what it does. Tell us a little bit about it and why you want to run for it.
So, I mean, in a nutshell, state committee woman and state committee man, there are two. It is an elected position, should you have an opponent, and you are the individual that represents the party for your county.
Right.
So there's a state committee man and a state committee woman for Sarasota, as well as Manatee, as well as every other county in Florida.
So you vote on issues like the party, if the party's going to take a certain position on something, you are involved in that?
Yes, and one of the things that is kind of not interesting is, I guess, that the state committee woman and state committee man have the opportunity to do, should they be selected, is become a delegate or be selected as a delegate.
Right. I know Christian Ziegler, the state committee man here in Sarasota County, was a delegate to the Republican National Convention.
Yes, which is a great honor. And actually, my opponent, Peggy Simone, who has held the seat for over 14 years, I believe, was not selected and has not been selected as a delegate in her time in office, which I found was a little bit interesting.
So why are you running? Why do you want this job?
Well, this just piggybacks on what you were saying about millennials and really engaging our community and giving them a voice.
Right.
And the millennials are a very powerful group of individuals, and we just need to be engaged and encouraged and educated to step up and take a stand, especially in Southwest Florida.
Well, Yeah. Well, they have an option then. If
Yes.
if they want to vote for a younger person, you're definitely giving them that choice. So we have to wrap it up now. But thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Please tune in again next week for another edition of Political Insider.